Lena couldn't stand that. She put her hands on her hips. She shot forward. "Yeah, your father's in prison," she hissed spitefully.
Square spitefully.
This was such a marvelous thing to have said that the little girls rushed away in a body, deeply, deeply excited, wild with joy.
Circle it.
Someone found a long rope and they began skipping. And never did they skip so high, run in and out so fast, or do such daring things as on that morning. In the afternoon, Pat called for the Brunel children with a buggy, and they drove home. There were visitors. Isabel and Lottie, who liked visitors, went upstairs to change their pinafores. But Kezia thieved out at the back. Nobody was about. She began to swing on the big white gates of the courtyard. Presently, looking along the road, she saw two little dots. They grew bigger. They were coming towards her. Now she could see that one was in front and one close behind. Now she could see that they were the Kelvies. Kezia stopped swinging. She slipped off the gate as if she was going to run away.
Page 206.
She hesitated. The Kelvies came nearer, and beside them walked their shadows.
Mark it.
Very long, stretching right across the road with their heads in the buttercups. Kezia clambered back on the gate. She had made up her mind. She swung out. "Hello," she said to the passing Kelvies. They were so astounded that they stopped. Lil gave her silly smile. Our Else stared. "You can come and see our doll's house if you want to," said Kezia, and she dragged one toe on the ground. But at that, Lil turned red and shook her head quickly. "Why not?" asked Kezia. Lil gasped. Then she said, "Your ma told our ma you wasn't to speak to us."
Mark it.
"Oh, well," said Kezia. She didn't know what to reply. "It doesn't matter.
Mark it.
You can come and see our doll's house all the same. Come on, nobody's looking."
Circle it.
But Lil shook her head still harder. "Don't you want to?" asked Kezia. Suddenly, there was a twitch, a tug at Lil's skirt. She turned round. Our Else was looking at her with big, imploring eyes.
Mark it.
She was frowning. She wanted to go. For a moment, Lil looked at Our Else very doubtfully, but then Our Else twitched her skirt again. She started forward. Kezia led the way. Like two little stray cats, they followed across the courtyard to where the doll's house stood.
Mark it.
"There it is," said Kezia. There was a pause. Lil breathed loudly, almost snorted. Our Else was still as a stone. "I'll open it for you," said Kezia kindly.
Mark kindly.
She undid the hook and they looked inside. There's the drawing room and the dining room, and that's the... Kezia! Oh, what a start they gave. "Kezia!" It was Aunt Beryl's voice. They turned round. At the back door stood Aunt Beryl, staring as if she couldn't believe what she saw. "How dare you ask the little Kelvies into the courtyard?" said her cold, furious voice.
Circle, cold furious.
"You know as well as I do you're not allowed to talk to them. Run away, children, run away at once, and don't come back again," said Aunt Beryl. And she stepped into the yard and shooed them out as if they were chickens.
Mark.
"Off you go immediately," she called, cold and proud.
Circle it.
They did not need telling twice. Burning with shame,
Mark it.
shrinking together, Lil huddling along like her mother, or else dazed. Somehow they crossed the big courtyard and squeezed through the white gate. "Wicked, disobedient little girl,"
Circle
said
wicked.
Aunt Beryl bitterly to Kezia. She slammed the doll's house too.
207.
The afternoon had been awful. A letter had come from Willie Brent, a terrifying, threatening letter, saying if she did not meet him that evening in Pullman's Bush, he'd come to the front door and ask the reason why. But now that she had frightened those little rats of Kelvies and given
Circle
Kezia a
it.
good scolding, her heart felt lighter. That ghastly pressure was gone. She went back to the house, humming.
Underlining.
When the Kelvies were well out of sight of Burnell's, they sat down to rest on a big red drain pipe by the side of the road. Lil's cheeks were still burning. She took off the hat with the quill and held it on her knee. Dreamily, they looked over the hay paddocks, past the creek, to the group of wattles where Logan's cows stood waiting to be milked. What were their thoughts?
Circle it.
Presently, our Else nudged up close to her sister. But now she had forgotten the cross lady. She put out a finger and stroked her sister's quill. She smiled her rare smile.
Mark it.
"I seen the little lamp," she said softly. Then both were silent once more.
Now, it is a compelling story. I've seen the little lamp. By the way, go back in the story and notice Mansfield's genius use of the word little over and over and over again. We are dealing, of course, with a big problem. racism, prejudice, and the like. But in this story, it is the little things that matter. The lamp, of course, as we said, symbolic. Now let's work really quickly at level 1. What is the basic story about? Go, just write down really quickly. What is for you, the story is a dumb story about 1 or 2 sentences, right? There is definitely a beginning, a middle, and an end to the story. But it's a 2A. Now let's work there that we're more interested. If you had to say, what is the major message of this story? Okay. What is it for you that you think Mansfield is trying to argue? Clearly the prejudice that we're experiencing in the story is horrifying and terrible. And it's all done by children for the most part, with the exception, of course, of the ant. Where do we learn our prejudices from? What does this story suggest? And to what degree are we aware of these prejudices? At 2B, well, what is for you the central conflict of this story? Is it internal? Is it external? Character versus another character. We certainly have examples of it. Character versus nature. Not so much, but for sure character versus society or an idea. What for you is the climax of the story? When the conflict comes to its fruition, and why? At 3A, well, how are you going to relate this to other texts? You know, what's a movie where this kind of prejudice is represented in some way? What's another story that you've read? We've mentioned, of course, Plato's Republic and the whole notion of the cave allegory. We often think things are real, R-E-A-L, when they're actually not, R-E-E-L, right? Finally, at 3B, how do you identify with a story like this? To what degree have you been in a situation like this from either side? Have you ever sat at lunch and made fun of the outsider? And now all of a sudden you realize, as you read this story, those are real people. Those are real children. Notice it's our. Did you see it all the way through? Our else. Our else. Mansfield trying to challenge you to take a personal view. Have you ever been in the role of the outsider? To what degree, or the outcast, to what degree was that for you a challenge? I hope that Mansfield for you is challenging you. I want you to do the question sets on 207, 208, 209. Thank you.